Cool. 12th of October, planned team meeting. You're all very welcome. I have the first item, so I'll crack on. So maybe you saw the Slack announcement. Maybe you've just seen some new faces around and you're wondering who they are. So if you're not aware, Optimize moved to plan from manage. And with that, we're welcoming 6 new people to the stage. 3 of them are currently on visiting grant stroke PTO. So, and a couple more are outside our time zone. So I believe we just have one verbalized introduction to do here, and I can do the rest. So Alex, do you want to kick off and tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Alex. I actually only joined less than 2 months ago, so I still feel pretty fresh. Kind of still just a GitLab baby. Previously, I was working at Full Stack Vidyard. It's basically a local startup in Kitchener, which is where I live in Ontario in Canada. We're close to Toronto. We're not quite Toronto. If you know it, great. If you don't, it's fine. You don't really need to know what it is. Outside of work, I am a gamer. I enjoy playing games. I started code by making games, and I still do that in my spare time for fun. And the time I don't do that, I'm typically hanging out with my wife and daughter. So that eats up a lot of my time. And that's basically my life these days. So saw some questions. PC or console, both. So my wife and I both have tower computers that we play. Lately, we've been playing Overwatch 2. That's our current go-to. Overwatch 1 was one of our favorites to play together. When I'm playing by myself, I'm typically playing more low-key indie games. I enjoy short storylines, ones that I can jump into, play for a bit, and then finish, not never-ending 200-hour-long games. So.
What was the last game you made or worked on?
Still currently working on a game with a little pirate dude and do pirate stuff. The last game I actually finished, I made a Donkey Kong fan game in like high school. Yeah, there's ongoing jokes about game devs never finishing projects. I am a perfect example of that. So
Awesome, very welcome. I've marked the next 2 to verbalize for Ezekiel and Magdalena. Maybe we should just do them async and move on with the rest of the agenda. What do folks think? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with that. That's a quorum, I think. Cool. Okay, big picture updates. That's me again. Oh. So yeah, this was just a question from me. I'm finding it harder now to follow everything that we've done with work items. And I'm just curious, do we have a single source of truth describing what's been implemented so far and what's in progress? And maybe somebody could validate what I believe to be true here and tell me where I'm wrong. So yeah, I think we're the only work item, bona fide work item we have so far is tasks, I believe, and partially requirements. And then we have title, description, assignee, status, and single level hierarchies as widgets so far, and labels and start due dates coming this milestone. Is that correct?
Not completely. Title is not a widget right now. It's a root property of work item. Description is both root property and a widget. We have a widget implemented, so this is correct. Also, we have iterations on the backend. We can fetch them. They are not used on the front end yet. And the opposite of that, we have milestones are in progress with mocked queries. So they're not implemented on backend, but is mocked on the front end. Should be merged probably in 15.5 if we're fast with that. But to answer your questions, unfortunately, we don't have a single source of truth for this, and I believe we should.
There is down in C, I guess 2C, where we talk about this, and there are a couple of open issues that have tables that we might want to consolidate, so we can talk about that. Then I agree with the single source of truth location, so we can talk about the best way to do that. And I think next we're planning on tackling system notes and the GraphQL APIs for that for work items, and then after that discussions. Those are the beyond like the hierarchy widget. Those are the big things that Epic needs to migrate to a work item. There might be a few other smaller things, but that's sort of our critical path that project management has been focused on for the most part, is like, what do we need to make sure epics can migrate over to work items? And then beyond that, we also probably want to consider refactoring how we handle work item to MR relationships sooner rather than later. I think that's something that Certify is going to own longer term. There might be a quick win there, but basically we need to have first class relationships to all merge requests to implement a given work item, not just a reference and closes. So there's some behavior that should probably change there. And I think we've been talking a little bit back and forth with Certify, but it's happy for them to take the lead. But I think that's an important use case for tasks that is sort of a gap right now in terms of adoption, where engineers would expect to be able to, I mean, they can already like mark a task is closed by a merge request, but it doesn't show up anywhere in the task and there's no paper trail or traceability. So that's sort of up next for the project management team, at least.
Just to clarify, issues themselves currently are not considered work items, right? Even though they're the basis, the table is the basis of the work item.
Correct.
Is there a plan to, you focused on epics there, like, is it just that there are so many widgets related to issues that we're focusing on epics first, or is there a plan to like eventually move issues to be work items as well? A work item type?
Yes, there's a plan for that. Work item, let me pull this up. This is sort of the working critical path that I think is still fairly accurate. I can zoom in. But I think we want to have the task. We want to think about, we originally talked about doing features, which is adding a parent on top of issues within projects. I'm not sure if we want to do that. It's up to product planning and Amanda and Melissa if they want to do that. But we want to get to feature parity with epics, where Alexander's been working on background migrations for group issues and work items at the group level natively, which then if we have the UI parity with epics and we have work items natively at the group, then that unblocks the epic migration stream. So this is sort of trying to support product planning and getting to this end state as quickly as possible. From project management standpoint, we're working on the widgets that we need to support the epic parity. And then once we get parity with the current issue UI or the legacy issue UI, we'll kind of have a toggle where you can swap between the two views and kind of opt into the new issue UI that's using the work item view app. And at that point, once we kind of work out all the kinks, we'll default it to on. So that's the working plan. And to answer your question, yes, there are a lot more widgets on issues than epics. And that's why we're sort of streamlining to epics first to unblock y'all for product planning. And then we'll continue doing what we need to do for issues until we're able to convert the legacy issue view to the new work item UI.
Did you link that diagram in the docs? In the agenda, sorry?
I can't. It's under 2A10 or 2A9. 2A29 to be exact, sorry.
Awesome, great explanation. Thanks a lot. Donald.
Where are we?
2A2.
2A2.
2A2A2A.
Yeah,
What?
10. The one that's highlighted.
10. Okay. Yeah. So I'll take. So I'm working on, because we have a few. I think we have at least 2 feature flags. Actually, we have more than 2 feature flags. But I need to go through and adjust things that are ready to go out of certain feature flags and just document all of our, like where we're at with all of our widgets, which I'm hoping to do today. And then as I'm going through that, I'll create an MR to, it looks like the blueprint, the architecture blueprint that Natalia created. I'll add it to that, an MR to that, and we can use that as our single source of of truth on where we're at with all of the widgets. I think we do document just a list of all the widgets that are available somewhere, right? Or do we not?
I mean, it's in the when I go look in GraphQL sometimes just to see which work item widgets are technically generally available. We also can probably do a better job keeping one of those 2 issues that the PM's created with tables updated. That's another option too if you want to do it outside of like code.
Okay. Well, I added in a few places. Sorry, I just got super distracted. Did we change the icon on our docs pages? Or at least the fav icon? It's a little red book. Orange
Yes.
book, maybe? Oh.
I just changed it.
Sorry, that threw me off. I like it.
Now I feel like you have to share, Donald. Can you show us?
Yeah, I don't know what's the easiest way to. I'll add it to the agenda. All right, where are we at now? 2A, 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 11? Done?
Yeah, I think we're done with that section. We're on to 2A, 2B, I think. Gabe.
Cool. So I just found out yesterday that the cross-functional prioritization table has been updated and simplified and trimmed down. It makes a lot of sense. The one thing that sort of piqued my interest is that UX debt slash sus impacting issues slash usability benchmarks is now probably always has been, but a higher priority than direction items. I would say that work items, the whole work stream is sort of a direction type thing, but it also has sus impacting benefits from it and sort of building our way out of some of the stuff that's there. Not all of it, but given like technically I read this prioritization table that we have to do all 261 sus impacting issues before we work on any direction things, which seems a little bit untenable. Maybe I'm wrong. I can get verification with product leadership and whoever else and Christy, see how we should do this, but just curious how we want to handle this moving forward, given we're sort of an awkward in-between state with work items where there are a lot of sus impacting things that will be improved with that or that we can improve as we build the new work item UI. And we also could continue to invest in the legacy issue detail views and epic views and all that good stuff too. So what are your all's thoughts?
Gabe, it looks like the usability is not tagged as a forced prioritization. Is that what you're talking about? The top,
It's not
the first 3 are, but
yeah, it's not a forced prioritization, but it's sort of like a I would say that based on how I understand things is that our sus scores haven't improved in several quarters and we really want them to improve. And so that's like a thing that we need to do. But then we also have our work items direction stuff. So 4 is the sus stuff. And then 6 is like what I would say the work item stuff. And I'm trying to figure out how we collectively as a team want to reconcile those two. Like, do we want to balance them out and only pick up the sus things that aren't going to be improved by the work items work stream and do both at the same time, or how should we balance this?
$261 is a big number, but the problem is it's only going to get worse if we don't address it. And I think that I like your idea of sort of, first of all, confirming if that's sort of a mandate that we address those before any direction. That being said, it would be nice to know what that number looks like if we sort of say, okay, these work item issues are actually going to address these sus issues and what that number then comes down to. So versus 261, or did you already factor that in?
Have not factored that in yet.
Cool.
But I can take a stab at that.
I mean, a general ballpark would be fine. Is it something like 5, or is it something like 25?
Amanda, I think you and I had discussed something similar to that, like what's going to be addressed by our current roadmap, and then anything that falls outside of that, like maybe making some capacity for that every milestone to kind of clean up if we need to. Gabe, go ahead, you were talking.
Oh no, I'll take an action item to audit all of those 261 issues, see which ones would be solved by things that we're doing with work items and which things won't be. I mean, right now that specifically would be like epic detail view related things, issue detail related things. It probably doesn't cover, I mean, it needs to at some point cover list and board views and that sort of experience, but I'll try to determine what's what, and then I'll work with Amanda and Matthew and Melissa and the EM just to verify all those things, and then we can figure out how we should divvy those up based on what's left, if that makes sense. But I do agree carving out a little bit of time. Like, for example, the OR filtering is a big sus thing, and I want to start chipping away with that already, right? And so I think we can pick the highest impacting things maybe and tackle those first if they're not like overly complicated from an implementation standpoint.
For product planning, I think it needs to be a balance. I think like the OR thing is a really great example of something that we should invest in, but there are going to be some things that I think we should put those efforts in the equivalent work items and not address it in legacy objects. I think if we raise our bar, or I don't know where we are, so I shouldn't say raise, but I think if our bar is set at the right level for usability optimization when we ship, we can stop growing this backlog, right? I think I'm guilty of it in the past where I've like over rotated for boring and small and ugly in terms of wanting better velocity, and probably created this kind of a backlog in my areas in the past. So in my opinion, as we ship moving forward, we want to have some, focus on that, not creating that debt moving forward.
There are some of these sus issues as well that I think shouldn't really be considered in isolation. One of the ones that came in for product planning about 6 months ago was something along the lines of, I can't easily access my epics when I'm looking at an issue. And so like the simple solution to that is like put it in the sidebar, but make it look different, right? Put epics in the sidebar at the project level. But that's not the actual problem that the user's having, in my opinion. The problem the user has is that they have to know too much about the system to actually be able to use it. They need to know that groups and projects are different. They need to know that they're in an issue and therefore in a project. They need to know that epics are only at the group level, and therefore they need to first navigate to the group to actually see their epics. That's the problem, not that they can't access their epics. It's that the system's hard to reason about. And so the real problem to solve there is probably what we're already doing with consolidating these two tiers of the hierarchy and actually making the whole system easier to reason about, in my opinion. So even though there's like 216 or whatever it is sus issues, I think that like if we would, or it's 261, sorry, like I don't like considering them all in isolation, because if we would solve, for example, that issue with projects and groups, we'd probably solve like 10 of these things all in different stages around GitLab, all being considered in isolation.
Alexis, I wonder if we could do a similar effort that we just did with the backlog, the roadmap, with these specifically, to try and group them and find those larger themes.
I think that makes sense. And I know Nick and Gabe, I think, also did the road mapping exercises. So kind of sharing those, and then, yeah, I think like mapping all those debt issues up to the theme or like the larger epic, even maybe like the existing work could be useful. And then it's like thinking about how to prioritize it outside of, you know, the initiative that we're working on. So for example, if it's not a work items related item, you know, but it's important. So thinking about how to make capacity for that as well. But that's a good
In that
idea.
regard, I agree with you. In that regard, I would personally carve out some percentage of every milestone to start burning that down. But I would rather not just look at the backlog and say, okay, let's just start scheduling these because they seem important without that due diligence. Gabe, do you mind if I schedule something for us to kind of go through that exercise?
No, absolutely. Please.
Cool.
Blair, did you want to verbalize your pretty picture of triangles before we go on to
Verbalize it. I'll create alt text for it. This is something that I've always gone by, even at my last career as a designer, which is just vertical slicing. And Gabe, I know you've mentioned it a lot, which is just when Amanda was talking about like over-indexing on boring, small, that sort of stuff. I totally get it. Like that's in our handbook. That's why, you know, we've all been doing it. But if we can sort of switch the mentality over into this other area, and me being UX designer and all that sort of stuff, I wanted to just sort of provide a visual. I think it helps me to understand what that switch looks like. Very often we choose one level or a segment of a level, and we go after that for a release. Well, it's really sort of a proportion of everything and going forward. Hopefully that helps. I don't know.
That's great. Thanks. Jan?
Yeah, just a minor note that it seems that there is a big difference in proportion of front-end versus back-end issues on this source list. So it might be that if we would want to prioritize or shrink this list before we work on work items or something like that, it might be that it would be mainly front-end team who would be overloaded with this work.
That's a good thing to call out. We should definitely talk about that too when we go through the exercise, Amanda. And Donald, I think you're last in this thread.
Yeah, so I was just wondering on kind of the details on the table, like if it's supposed to be or the intent of it is to work on it top down, so like we complete everything in security as the #1 priority. Once we're done with that, we move on to the next thing. So yeah, it kind of to add to Brett's question around the forced prioritization. But
yeah, I'll continue to get clarity on it because I've been at GitLab for 3.5 years. I still don't have what exactly it means, but the way I understand it, the priority table reflects the priorities of leadership across all departments. And I think if we deviate from that order of priorities in a significant way, or in a way where somebody could look and say, hey, you're working all these things that are priority 7 and none of these other priority things, I think that's what has led to certain teams getting put under engineering allocations and other things like that. So I think they may expect us to make good decisions based on what we know from the front lines of like where we're operating and what our strategy is and what our immediate needs are, from customers to backend stuff to infrastructure to availability, security issues. But if we significantly deviate from that order of priorities, we need to have a very well-defined argument as to why, I would say, right? Like if we go off and do something crazy, we need to be able to explain why what we're doing is the best solution based on the knowledge we have that maybe leadership isn't privy to. So that's sort of how I interpret the table. But I'll ask for clarity on that in my next skip level with David. And yes, Brett, if you want to verbalize, I agree. I think they can be worked on together rather than linearized.
Yeah, it just seems like certainly the top three, which are the forced prioritization, we need to get knocked off. But the remaining ones we can mix and match a little bit, just in a little bit more prioritized order. But that's just my reading of it.
Cool.
Amanda, I think you're up next.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was calling out to the team to help fill in this feature table that we put together in product planning, only to learn that Gabe already did this months ago. So let's use his as the SSOT because I think it's more comprehensive. I'll go through it this week and compare anything I have to the one that is listed there, 368044, and add any content that may be missing. But I think that it would be great to open this up to all teams to make sure that the content is accurate as of now. And then I wonder if it would make sense to move this to the blueprints docs, because it would be nice visibility into for customers and users as we start, improving this feature set. Nice, John. Now that I read it, I think I'll stop doing that. Oh, that wasn't John. That's Donald. Sorry.
It's fine if we do. I've just seen it in a couple places, but it's a lot
Until
shorter
you
than writing out product planning.
you just said that, I just realized it. I'll stop that. Apologies to the product planning team.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to demos then.
Sure, I have the first one, and I'm selling you health status filtering on boards today. So last week, Flory, I guess, already demoed that you can now filter based on health status on the issue lists, which is amazing. Didn't work now, but should work usually. And now I'm presenting you filtering on the boards. So what do you think about this board? Well, you think that you want to have a health filter on, and that's exactly what this new feature does. So we can now filter based on health status, and this is now also available in project and group boards once my merge request gets merged. So yeah, that's basically health status filtering on boards now. Any issues, comments, ideas, notes? Good. By the way, one comment. Sorry.
Never mind. That's okay.
Anything?
I was just gonna. I think this looks great. I was just curious whether or not the filter has been added to the dashboard issue list or not. But it's
dashboard issue list. You mean the issue list, the normal one? Or
no, the one from the icon in the upper. Yeah.
This one. Good question. If it's in there, no, it's not there yet. So we should probably want to sync this here as well. Maybe it needs to be implemented for each filtered search right now, but yeah, definitely doable.
Cool. Okay. Sorry.
I don't even remember if the dashboard list uses. I'm assuming it uses view issue list, so it shouldn't be too. It should just be copying it into that?
No, so our dashboard list is still the oldest implementation of list, which means it uses REST API and the legacy filtered search.
It's using REST, yeah. So we have this now in GraphQL implemented. Yeah. One comment in the merge request was that we filter on not equal. So maybe this is something we want as a follow-up at some point, that we say like health status does not equal something instead of only giving the option to equal. Maybe as an option if I ever want that, and add this other operator here as well. Good, thanks. That's it from my side. I think the next one is Alexander.
Just on that, this was just merged, so I'll let you know that you can now add this track health status label to any issue, and it will automatically degrade the health status of that issue if it meets certain criteria. Like, it's pretty broad at the minute, so like if the issue isn't assigned to somebody by the 6th of the month, it will be automatically made needs attention. If it's not assigned to anybody by the 14th, it'll be put at risk automatically. And if it's assigned to somebody but it's not in review by the 14th, it'll be marked as at risk. So like a couple of simple rules, they can still be changed, but you just assign this label to any issue in GitLab org, and it will automatically update over time. So this is awesome because you'll be able to filter by basically everything that's at risk in your milestone using the board. So pretty cool.
John, I know you just did this, so I'm assuming the answer is no, but have we documented this in the handbook? Specifically, I'd love to have this is the way we work and the rules we use.
No, it's not documented yet, but it will be. And also, like, it's part of the OKR to dog food health status this quarter. So I think Melissa intends to also communicate it amongst the product function at GitLab. So she may have a plan for that.
Yeah, I picked that up. I picked that OKR up from her. So that's why I was being selfish. I wanted to reference it when I advertise.
Cool, no worries. I think Kushal already made that point, so we're on to Eugenia.
Okay. This is still work in progress. So what you're going to see here is not yet merged. Also, this includes some changes that Jan is adding in another MR, but okay, let me see. Oh, too many windows. There. So it's pretty simple. We basically have an epic with children. So the children we were allowed to add before could be from a subgroup, for example. But now what we can do is add an existing epic and go to a completely different group. So not in the subgroup or an ancestor. For now, we have to copy the link and go and paste it. We can't really search for it. But that should be, we should be able to add it and list it. So there it is. We see it's not the same as GitLab org. We can also add another one from a subgroup from the other group. Then it has some kind of problem with rendering the children, but I think this was here already. We have to reload to see the actual children. I don't know if it's, I have to check again in front end if this is happening already, or if something that was introduced by this change. But if we go to another user, like this one, that's a member of the subgroup X, but not the group X, shouldn't be able to see that child. So it would just be hidden in the list. It wouldn't have any indication that it was there. If we go to one of the children, we should be able to see the ancestor as epic with children. If we are not able to see the ancestor, it would say none for now. But that's basically it. Any questions or concerns?
Yeah, so thanks a lot for doing this. I mean, this has been a long time coming, and a lot of team members as well as users are looking forward to this. Regarding the front end bug around the reference not correctly showing up when you put an epic from an external. So do we have any front end issue tracking this? Because it is probably a simple fix to do, and maybe I can just push an MR to fix it quickly.
No, not really. I think maybe it's just when you add it and it's not refreshed that it has a problem. What I can see is that when it refreshes, it shows the reference, and for example, sometimes I added a new child, and then all the other childs will become the same title, and it's like a duplication of the one I just added, but they're not really there. When you load, it's correct. So yeah, I would check again and create an issue for this.
I think I have the next comment. I just want to thank you. I publicized the work of issues from different groups yesterday in a bunch of different channels on Slack, and people are using like, this is life-changing terminology to express their gratitude. And so this is obviously the next step in something that's been long awaited. So I just really want to thank you for all of your work on this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's quite simple when you see what's actually happening, but then in the back end, yeah, we have to adjust a few things, and it's not simple. So there's some work left. So I think we're gonna keep working on this in the next milestone. But yeah, as soon as there is something to test, that we can list children and we can list ancestors, I would enable in production and tell people so they can start testing a leasing plan.
I think you just answered my question as well. So I was just wondering whether this is like POC level, if you still have any performance concerns, and which milestone would you be targeting to release it?
Performance so far, I don't think there would be. There's actually been an improvement in performance for listing children because we tackle a lot of issues. And I think there's another one, pretty important that would make a big difference as well. So with those improvements, and then this adding that on top wouldn't be too bad. We also have a limit now of 100 children. So yeah, that should be okay. It would be nice to test it in production when we have real tables with real size and all of that. And probably next milestone, we would have most of what you saw here working behind a feature flag. It's just that we have a couple of MRs that are just getting ready for review, and we're kind of at the end of the milestone. So probably it's safe to say 15.6, we could enable feature flag in production for at least our groups. We will need 2 groups. That's what I had a question in the channel, because you can add a child from a group that doesn't have this feature flag enabled. So remember to do that when you're testing it.
Amazing. This is like a really highly requested feature, like for at least as long as I've been at GitLab. So yeah, it's amazing to see it finally come about. Cool, Alex.
Yeah, hello. So I've shared in Work Items channel a short recording demo, but I can probably, hopefully it works, probably demo some now. So I was exploring, like we were thinking about custom fields, and as a weekend project, I was exploring how the competition kind of does it. And I've tried to do that. So this is not as exciting because it's not in the product, and it's probably not going to be in the product anytime soon, at least, because this involves adding a new stuff to the tech stack and so on. But just out of curiosity, my thinking was, what if we could move the custom fields feature as it is to a just totally different data source, so we can just work that on that as a different project that can then be attached to the work items and so on. So here I have like a group with a bunch of projects in it. Yeah, a bunch of projects, a bunch of issues, about 40K. It's not something for performance. It's more like, this is the collection that I have. And the custom field is basically a JSON, which has the ID of the issue and the custom weight, and some of them have estimated cost, some of them don't. Pretty much all of them have the custom weight. So then I can basically query this. So these custom fields are coming from a different data source. They're coming from MongoDB. And I've added some extra stuff here that you can do on the Mongo side. And I'll just copy paste so that it doesn't take a long time. So you can calculate, that doesn't go there, but goes into the issues. So you can calculate from those specific custom fields, because this can be dynamically passed as an attribute. You basically can compute that on any integer field and so on. And there are a lot of, well, there are many of these kind of functions on MongoDB side. So then if I compute that, I can get the total sum of the custom weight, the average, which is 4.5, which you'd expect because that's populated with a random from 0 to 9, the total, the average of the estimated cost, and so on. And another thing that I have here is also doing some filtering on the custom fields. So we have an expression where you have custom field equals either 3, or I can do equals 5, and or actually it's 3 ors, or equals, or yeah, let's do equal, and then we can do greater than. So now I can get only 3s and 5s and whatnot, whatever I can specify it. And this can be extended to also. So this now only does ors, but it can also be extended to do an add. For instance, if I say expression field name is this estimated cost. Let's say it's greater than, and the value 1,000. Then it should filter all of those to that only fit that stuff. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff that I was playing around with. I think like we have several things that we are kind of exploring on custom fields, storing them. Ideally, if we could do this stuff on the Postgres side, that would be the ideal thing. We don't have to add anything to the tech stack. There's also another idea that I have that maybe we can just index that in Elasticsearch, because we kind of have already Elasticsearch in the tech stack. And this is the third option of like, how does the competition do it? So that like all of these computations and you can easily, what's nice about the Mongo is that it's a document based, so you can add these custom fields seamlessly, and you don't have to worry how to make it so that you can query them easily and so on and so forth. But yeah.
I'll streamline my comments, but I just know that adding a new database or data store requires CEO approval. So like we should probably have a really good explanation for why, if that's what we finally propose. And I'll also link up in the work item channel some other links to where I read about Notion and some of the things that they're doing. I'm pretty sure that they're using Postgres, but I don't know how they're doing what they're doing. So we can continue to explore. I think my last comment is it would be awesome to see if we can come up with like an exhaustive list of all the possible avenues to explore. And that way, like it would allow us to sort of diverge and different engineers could pick up different solution paths to kind of vet and explore, because I think what you're doing is super valuable. And this is like a complex problem to solve. I was talking with the database team and they said that this is probably the most complicated database problem in all of GitLab. So we definitely should do our due diligence. And I think it'd be cool to continue doing that.
So who's our stable counterpart then with DB? If this is the most complicated problem?
I don't know for certain yet. I think we know who it's going to be, but I also know as part of that, they're expecting, just to set expectation, they're expecting us to come up with the proposal, the proposed solution, and do the work there. They don't have capacity to like solve it for us, but they do have capacity to consult and say, hey, like you should or shouldn't do this, or here you should explore that. And so I think we need to take the onus for leading the effort and then pulling in the stable counterpart whenever they get assigned to make sure that our solution proposal is viable. Like they told me a story about what happened with, I guess, doing logging and monitoring, and how like when they turned that on, it took down production, and then it did like basically drop a bunch of database tables and all these other things because the way that it was designed in the load, it just couldn't handle that. And they said that this was a similar pattern that like we just need to be careful. But they did agree that this warrants a stable counterpart, so we'll get one. That's good. I think we're about out of time, so I don't think we can fully cover my next comment, but based on recent bugs and a bunch of things, like this is like self-impacting stuff too, coming back to it, where, you know, when we add things, issues, we forget to, or we iterate later on adding into the move service. Then when things get moved, not all the things get moved over, or attributes. And so we're also kind of duplicating issues by just closing and cloning, and it's super clunky. Right now, this manifests when an issue that has tasks is moved to a different project. The tasks disappear from the tasks widget. And so we need to figure out how to solve that. And I think we could solve that now that we've adding an issue to an epic in a different hierarchy. With epics, we'll need to support that with the work item relationships anyways. And so we can fast follow and include that as a potential solution, so that when you move an issue, you move the issue and you leave the tasks, or maybe we close all tasks. I don't know what we should do from a UX standpoint. I'll defer to the UX folks for that. But this is also sort of like, should we just properly handle moving issues? And then along that same line, when I think about properly handle moving issues, and that the proposal for that is very similar to the proposal for sharing an issue or sharing a feature work item to multiple groups and projects, which is basically the same thing. If I want to move the issue, I could share it with another namespace and then unshare it with the current namespace, and then it's moved, right? So there's lots of like potential solution swirling on. I think we should align as a team and stage on how we should handle this core behavior with work items. So we can follow up async if we want on that, but just wanted to raise awareness.
I kind of wonder if the requirements for, like, if the reasons why we did a close and clone strategy for moving an issue rather than just move the issue are still valid. I presume that decision was made a long time ago.
Yeah, it was to maintain transparency within open source communities. And I think if I look at GitHub, they don't do that, right? They just properly handle moving issues. And I think the amount of technical debt and product debt that this path has caused is not worth the trade-off, in my opinion.
It breaks service desk
So
as well.
there is also the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's my whole point. It breaks service desk as well, because when you move the issue, the person who created the issue no longer gets notifications because it's a new issue. It's not, all right. So it's fully broken. And yet, like, I think GNOME and a few other large open source communities use service desk exactly in this way, or they want to, and it's a huge pain.
Yeah, I think moving the issue also breaks, or at least I may think that that was another reason why we didn't do actual move, is it will break the previous references. So wherever the old issue is referenced, if you move the original issue and not leave something there, you'll just, the reference will give you a 404, or maybe link to a different issue if you create another project on top of that that is called the same way and has the same IID and things like that.
It's also partly why I was thinking moving towards using the global ID. It's quite a lot, because then when you move something, you're just changing the attribute on the thing instead of having to create a new issue ID. Either way, I think we should probably get ahead of this.
You cannot use global ID because it will get broken on import and export. So global IDs are not assured to be preserved, only EIDs.
I think if
Like
this
I said,
is
I'm
something
kind of scared.
if it's something that we're seriously considering, it might be worth a blog post, maybe about something like about how the best intentions can bite you in the butt later, and get some community feedback on things that we might not be expecting before we make such a change.
I think that's a great idea. And I would definitely support us and even you in drafting that. I think the first thing that I think we need to do though is align on a direction as a team. Like there are so many technical considerations that I don't feel equipped to make the decision. I think UX should weigh in from UX impact standpoint, and engineering should lead the feasibility, right? And then we can make sure that it works for our customers and our user base. But like, I don't even know what the right solution is yet. So that's, I think, the first step. The blog post would be awesome.
Do we know how many moved issues we typically have overall on our .com server?
I think I asked this question the other day in Slack, and maybe it was Donald said there's about 0.7% maybe or so. But it's like 500,000, I think, or give or take, which is still a lot.
Like for the broken references, we can have a temporary solution as we do for moved, I think, projects or something like that, where you store the old route, but once that gets overwritten, it still breaks after a while in a way. So I don't know. Maybe even the lower percentage, it is okay to break those references. I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about these links to the old issues too, so it might be a possible solution.
It would end up breaking all of our links back to CE, wouldn't it? All the CE issues that we moved. And didn't we utilize this for our own benefit?
No, it wouldn't. I assume we would still keep some symlink table which would keep references of these existing old references or EIDs to the new moved issue, wouldn't we?
It only breaks those links if the project itself disappears in a way, right? Because the URL is so that it contains the project path / the IID. If you somehow move the project as well after a while or something, and someone else creates another project with the same path, we're not even when it's not there, it just basically breaks. But as long as the project is there, you can say, well, I didn't find this issue, so I'm redirecting you to this reference in a way. Or if that issue gets, if another issue with the IID, but probably doesn't get created another one. Yeah.
Cool, let's follow up. Per Nicholas looks exhausted. Like, all right. Cool, we're over. I'm only joking. But we're over time anyway. But what an awesome agenda we had today. So thanks everyone who came in and demoed something, no matter how small. Although none of them were particularly small, so that's great. Cool. If anyone has anything else to raise, like now would be a good time. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording. Blair's waving. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thanks for showing up, everybody. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.